Hello, my fellow Americans. My name is Eric Strauss, and I am a citizen like you. I live in California, Laverne, California. It's a nice little neighborhood of turn of the century craftsman homes and parades. A small town America nestled here in bustling Southern California. I come to you tonight with part two of my foreign policy platform, and I come to you as a voice of, as I've mentioned, a guy in the garage who hopes to bring sanity, nonpartisan reality, fairness, and decency and professionalism, ironically, back to the presidency. I believe myself to be a uniquely qualified citizen to attain the presidency for a number of reasons, the foremost of which is a rejection of hubris. Hubris is a word that means pride against God, and I think that the government in general exhibits a lot of that these days. The executive branch is no exception. I'm not a representative of any group. I'm not an advocate of any ideology. And it means I'm not going to be part of the party you favor if you favor a party. I'm not going to accept the label of the group you favor if you favor a group. And it also means I'm not going to identify particularly with any side or against any side. My goal here is to bring a true nonpartisan evaluation of the situation, some solvency, some handling of things in a reasonable, adult, intelligent fashion, led by somebody who is deeply knowledgeable about policy and who's additionally got a clear vision for what the country ought to do, that's restrained by humility regarding the limits of an individual human being in directing so mighty a power as the United States. Let's go into part two here of my foreign policy agenda. Its diplomacy is D. Number one, the State Department must be empowered to do its job. One, pragmatism and principlism, not ideology, must drive the work of our State Department. Our most meaningful international policy work is done between diplomats working out the specifics of how to enable successful engagement. This might mean hammering out visa difficulties, engaging with diplomats of other countries to figure out workarounds to barriers to interstate trade or other such matters. There's a lot of specific goings on day to day between diplomats trying to handle the handshakes between the different kinds of communicative and outcome systems that the different states present to each other as bodies with which individuals have to deal with in interacting. So it's important then that we empower our diplomats to do their jobs and treat them as the professionals they are. Number three, our State Department and the diplomats that make up our international voice must be returned to a nonpartisan mission of representing U.S. interests among a community of equally sovereign and not equally powerful states. And that's the reality. Internationalism right now means there's states that are all equally sovereign. Look at North Korea. It's successfully established its sovereignty. Has it established its legitimacy in the eyes of free countries? No, of course not. But it's successfully established its sovereignty. After all, nobody's invading them. And I'm not advocating we should, for sure. You can see in my previous video called Part 1 of my Foreign Policy Agenda that I'm opposed to unnecessary military action internationally. Regardless, let's go on to Part 2 here of diplomacy, treaties, and agreements. Our willingness to enter into agreements with foreign powers must be tempered by realism, pragmatism, and principlism. This means that, realistically, we must acknowledge that the way we understand the world, including how we understand internationalism, environmental factors, globalism, political ideology, democratic habits and practices, conflicting and conforming values, changes. This understanding changes over time, both in its specifics, what we think is true, and in its framings, what we think is most important. Number three, improvements in science and technology engender ever greater information fluidity and ever more ability to convert the tangible into the fungible by digitization. So, what I mean by tangible and fungible is there's one of me, but there's infinite copies of this video. So I'm converting the tangible, these words I'm speaking, into the fungible, a digitized copy of which there are infinite number, presumably, that functionally takes up no space in the real world, and that allows the value of whatever's being said to spread via its own merit. Okay, let's go on to the next one. The average level of discursive fluency exhibited by individual humans worldwide improves as barriers to universal communication fall. This is important because we've got conflicts with different cultures. A lot of people will point to ISIS as an example of a pressing international problem. Well, we're not going to be able to deal with ISIS by blowing them up. Just not going to work. That's how we manage to successfully radicalize and to justify our enemies in their violence towards us. In other words, if they're going to feel as though their cause is righteous enough to give up their own lives to kill Americans, they need reasons. They've got to have things to point to. And when we blow up villages with drone strikes, well, that's a pretty good motivation to justify someone's violence against America. I'm not saying I'd tolerate it, regardless of their justification. I'm saying I'd like to prevent it from happening, instead of playing right into it, which is what our current policy does. So, the battle then, conceptually, is between the growth of ecosystem redundancies, promoting free discourse, places like appear.in that allow me to talk to people in Pakistan and Bangladesh and India like I did today, allow me to talk to people from Norway and Sweden like I did today. Yes, I talked to those countries just today. Probably more. I can't even recall exactly who I spoke with. I usually speak to somebody from Britain at the same time. And plus, lots of Americans. These kind of platforms of discourse help everybody in the world attain a freer, more civil, and more functional society. And the alternative are barriers to such, which are primarily statist, autocratic, religious, ideological, or exploitational structural barriers. I don't want to go into a ton of detail about what I mean by those, but if anybody wants to ask me questions about any of this stuff, I'd be happy to give detailed answers. Intelligence. As far as the intelligence agency goes, we need to collapse the NSA into the CIA. The U.S. only needs one international intelligence agency. We need to direct cyber intelligence itself towards, number one, the empowerment of individuals and companies to legitimately protect themselves from incursions and hacks by anyone, including agents of the federal government itself. That means let's see the NSA build these digital resources that protect Americans from all comers. Don't build in backdoors and stuff. What ends up happening is a disastrous mishap that's totally predictable if you try to build in backdoors, assuming you can control that stuff, assuming people aren't clever enough to figure out the same thing you were able to figure out when you put it in there. Be honest in your dealings with people. Be honest in what we can do successfully to empower Americans, not empower the federal government and this limited group of Americans who want to apply control mechanisms to try to keep us all safe. Those don't keep us safe. They empower this specific group to be a danger. Okay. Of course, what needs to happen as well is that... I'm sorry, let me go to number 2 here. I don't want to get off topic. The NSA, or the NSA as part of the CIA, should develop encryption and cyber safety protocols that link redundantly to specific individuals, including biometrics, and redundantly to location-specific protocols and protocols of behavioral norms. What this means, basically, is the kind of thing that Google does where it says, here's your 2-layer security, where it calls your phone. You have to get a code on your phone, as well as know the password. I like those layer of redundancy approaches to preserving nodes of informational privacy that individuals have good cause or want or need to preserve. I don't want everybody being able to hack into my email. Not that I have anything to hide. I just would prefer that people not be able to hack into my email. They can read everything I send and read everything that everybody sends me. Then maybe they'd even be able to send stuff under my name, and I certainly wouldn't want that. So there's lots of reasons why we need to maintain privacy sometimes, and there are protocols that can link that private information to individuals in ways that are healthy, and these are some of the protocols that we could apply there. We can also use this in government to make sure that the nodes of information are themselves linked to webs of individuals so that nobody is excessively empowered to control the information, the access of information to other people unnecessarily. Okay, That means, number 3, increased transparency regarding intelligence expenditures, amongst other things. How much money are they spending and on what? We have no idea, yet we, the American people, are the ones who purportedly express our will through these agencies. How can we know whether it's our will that we're expressing if we don't even know what they're spending money on or how much money they're spending? Number 4, declassified documentation, the release of which has been prevented primarily to avoid embarrassing a given agency. This is a lot of information that's being held classified because agencies will find it embarrassing, not because there's actual national security concerns. In general, I think we should make classification actually an issue of national security and reject secrecy as a default for most matters, which it often is now, erring instead on the side of transparency when in doubt. I'm a big believer in the Freedom of Information Act, and I'd like to see it applied as written. Anyway, that's going to bring to a close this particular episode or part of my platform. It's the Part 2 Foreign Policy. This is kind of an overview of my foreign policy ideologies, or not ideologies, but idea frames of areas of foreign policy I think need to be addressed as subject matters, basically. And I know that it doesn't address specific questions like, well, what are you going to do about North Korea? What are you going to do about Iran? What are you going to do about nuclear ambitions of other countries? What are you going to do about China and Taiwan? It doesn't cover any of that stuff. My answer to that is I'd be happy to answer any of those kind of questions on specific issues, and I probably will produce some videos on specific other countries and our policies towards them and what we have to do about that. And as the platform continues to grow, I work on it pretty much every day, and it's got 20 pages or so worth of stuff now, and it's available for anybody to look at. I encourage you to check it out and see what I've written so far. I've got an immigration section. I got a section on economics, on a tax plan, on I think I got a section on the war on drugs. There's a lot of stuff in here. I would love to see American politics return to talking to the politicians actually about their policies, individual citizens being empowered to actually talk to the candidates regularly, one-to-one, not just in special controlled town hall meetings. Ask me a question anytime about anything. I'll either have the answer for you or tell you I don't know. If I make a claim about what we ought to do, I will defend it, and I'll explain why we ought to do it instead of something else. I will try to spend as much time as I can to answer every question everybody has of me. It's not obviously going to be possible with as many citizens as there are in the United States, but I want to promise everybody that I'm here to represent the diversity of values, perspectives, and realities that we each face, and to not take any particular policy prescription for granted, to understand that every single one of them impacts us in different ways, and I need to take seriously the impacts on whomever is impacted by whatever policy decisions the Strauss administration will make. I hope you'll join me in changing America and in promoting an actual U.S. citizen, guy in his garage, to be the president, like it should be. Thanks for watching. God bless America. Vote Strauss 2020. Please visit my GoFundMe campaign page, the link of which I'll put here in the video thing, the description. For being a professional YouTuber, I sure don't quite have much fluency there. Here it is, GoFundMe.com, host Eric for President 2020, with hyphens between all those words. Okay, thanks for watching again, and good night from Laverne, California.